We are joined now by AccuWeather meteorologist Paul Williams in State College, Pennsylvania. Paul, give us the latest track on this storm.
Well, Mike, this is basically like a horror film, and we really don't want a sequel to this thing. But the monstrous thing that we now call Maria continuing to move. Now, as it hit, by the way, this morning, it hit at 6 o'clock in the morning with gusts up to 113 miles per hour. Some of the rivers west of San Juan surged up to 20 feet or even higher than that in just a few hours. So, yes, the devastation is real and tremendous and all-encompassing. Now, the eye is now moving away from Puerto Rico. The winds are holding at 110 miles per hour. The latest location on the eye now is at 18.8 north, 67.3 west, and it's moving to the northwest at about 12 miles per hour. Now, here's a look at what's happening with the tracking. It's been downgraded to a Category 2. That's where we are right now. But as it moves to the north of Hispaniola, it's expected to strengthen again back to a Category 3 by 2 a.m. Friday, and then staying a Category 3 going into Saturday, and it should move into the deeper and cooler waters of the Atlantic. Now, as it runs into shear, which is kind of like sanding this thing down a little bit, that's what shear will do, along with the cooler water, that should hopefully downgrade it to a Category 2. But once again, we're talking about big-time problems because it's still going to stay strong and a hurricane at the very least, even as it begins to kind of float out here away from the Florida coast.
And you said a horror film. It seems like a whole summer of horror films, violent storms this year. We saw Harvey in Texas, Irma pummeling much of the same terrain that's been battered by Maria, sort of a 1-2 punch, if you will. Have you ever seen anything quite like this?
Yeah, well, you know, these storms are moving on their typical pattern for this time of the year. The problem here is not necessarily the path, but the strength of these storms. It's unprecedented to have so many Category 4, Category 5. Oh, and one note to your story. It was a Category 4, but barely, by like 1-2 miles per hour when it hit. That's like the difference between being hit with a 12-ounce bat versus a 10-ounce bat. Is still going to cause the same devastation. And speaking of Irma and Maria, here's a look at Irma with the dark line here. Irma moved right along straight through into Cuba and bounced to the north towards Florida. Maria, which was even stronger, made a direct beeline straight for Puerto Rico. Irma, ironically enough, Puerto Rico avoided the worst of Irma, could not avoid the worst of Maria because Maria was a direct hit as she will continue to track to the north. Now, they both cross the same area to the north of Hispaniola, but Maria is supposed to move to the north and more than likely away from the Bahamas. That's what the early models are indicating to us right now. And quite frankly, that's what we, even in the meteorological world, are praying for.